Hello. Here is yet another sit-down check-in of a reading vlog. I just haven't felt like filming at all this month. So yeah, I haven't done it. But I do want to check in about these books. This is my first check-in. More books being read, more books to come for sure. But the first book that I finished reading in the month of July was a reread for me, and it was for Books Love Everyone. And I think that so many people have read this for Jane Austen July this year. It seems like the whole world is reading this, but this is an excellent read. I won't say much about it here, but this was Jane Austen's Bookshelf by Rebecca Romney. I had read it before. This was a second read for me because I was given an ARC last year. I knew that I loved it. I knew that I wanted to be able to discuss it with friends, and I knew that I wanted it to guide some of my reading for Jane Austen July in 2025. There will be a discussion about this if you want to join us. I've got a video posted a couple of days prior to this, inviting you, maybe a week prior to this, inviting you to a discussion, a Zoom discussion about it if you want to. So find that video and get those details. But there will also be a wrap-up video about this in early August. So I'm not going to say anything here and now. The next book that I finished was one that I said I was going to prioritize because I'd wanted so badly to read it last year, and I did that. I prioritized a reading of Emma of 83rd Street by Audrey Bellezza and Emily Harding, and this was kind of disappointing. It is, from start to finish, really just Emma, as Jane Austen told it, but it's set in New York, and the Emma character in here, in my opinion, is insufferable. I did not like her at all. I'm rereading Emma, and I have not in the past enjoyed Emma. It has been for decades my least favorite and least read Jane Austen, and also least film adaptation watched. But I have to tell you that I am really enjoying reading Emma this year. And I think so much about enjoying a book has to do with like who you are when you come to it. And I think that, I haven't finished Emma yet, and I want to talk about Emma in its own accord. But I want to say one thing. I want to say that I think that I view her now through my teacher lens. Whereas when I read her previously, because it has been such a long time since I've read Emma, I was younger and I thought of her more as a peer, and now I see her more as a kid. And I make more allowances for her, and I understand her more, and I feel more of a gentle tolerance, I guess, for her actions. I see the potential in her more than I did when I read her as more of a peer. And she drove me nuts. But I'm a different person now. And I think that, A, that really speaks to Jane Austen's writing, but also B, who you are when you come to a book is very important. So I'm loving Emma, and I can still say that the reread of this, I just really disliked this Emma character. I did not find her endearing or full of potential like I do with the actual Emma. But also there's just not enough in here to make it unique. I don't feel like it added anything to the Jane Austen or Emma story. I felt like it was really just a reflection, a poor reflection of the actual story. So yeah, this was a letdown. I gave it 3 stars, but it was a letdown. The next book that I read, however, was Ruth Ware's The Woman in Suite 11. When this arrived, I just put everything else down and immediately began to read this. I had not read, still have not read, The Woman in Cabin 10. There are 2 books by her that I have not read from her very early work, and I had never really intended to read them. I really fell in love with her around the death of Ms. Westaway era in her career, and have read everything from the death of Mrs. Westaway all the way down to the current day, as well as The Lying Game. I went back and read The Lying Game. But I don't think you have to have read The Woman in Cabin 10 to enjoy this. This is a sequel to The Woman, or a companion to The Woman in Cabin 10. There are some serious spoilers for The Woman in Cabin 10, some tremendous spoilers for The Woman in Cabin 10 in this, in order to tell this story. But I, through reading this book, understand enough about what happens in that book to not feel a loss. I completely understood everything that was happening, characters' motivations and choices, all of it. I don't think that you have to read The Woman in Cabin 10 if that's not of interest to you. I loved this. In my Instagram description, I said that if a thriller can be joyful, this is it. I loved everything about this. Highly recommend this. I always enjoy Ruth Ware, but there are some Ruth Wares that I just really love and some that I kind of just tolerate. And I really, really, really loved this one. So, recommend. I don't want to tell you too much about it because I honestly don't know what would be a spoiler and what wouldn't be a spoiler because I haven't read the other one yet. But I will say that the main character is a retired, well, she's not retired. She's had 2 children, journalist. When she suddenly gets called, she's just been raising her kids, she's been raising her kids, and she gets called to do a certain article and to get a certain interview. And things go crazy from there. This was fun. Lots of twists and turns. Lots of things I didn't anticipate. So feel good. So feel good. A lovely experience. I read this, The Ladies Rewrite the Rules by Suzanne Allain. And I wanted to prioritize this one because I had started it in the past and didn't complete it. It's a very short book. I was enjoying it the first time I read it. I just got distracted by other things, and I thought I really just want to go back to it and actually read it and see if I love it. And I did. I loved it. This is a delight. This is super fun. It is about a woman. In the start of the book, there's a woman. She's a young widow, and she is kind of resigned to living the rest of her life. She's in her 20s, and she's kind of resigned to living the rest of her life as this widow. Her husband was a good deal older than her, like many decades older than her, and she is living life with his former butler and her sister-in-law, his sister, who is very old. And she's just kind of being an elderly woman, but she's only 25, and she's kind of resigned herself to this life. She had a pleasant relationship with her now dead husband, but it wasn't a love relationship. There wasn't romance or passion or attraction there, but there was respect and kindness and affection. But he's dead now, and she kind of thinks that that's all life is for her now. When suddenly she starts to get, on this one night, she starts to get all these callers, these gentlemen callers. And they all claim to have known her former husband in some way. And something just feels very strange about the whole thing. And the butler uncovers that there has been a pamphlet printed with all of the names and addresses of wealthy widows in the city. And this is being distributed to all of the second, third, fourth, fifth sons of noble classes in the city, because those sons can't make a living with the jobs that are available to them respectfully, that will uphold the lifestyle that they are expected to live by society because of their names. And they don't have the option of marrying the wealthy young debutantes in society. That honor goes to their eldest brothers, who will be the inheritors. And so the families of eligible young women don't want their daughters to marry the second, third, fourth, fifth son. They want them to marry the first son so that they inherit. So if they can't make money through work and they can't make money through marriage, what are they supposed to do? So one of them hatches this plan that they can marry the widows, because the widows, they're not sought after. And so one of them prints this thing so that the second, third, fourth, fifth sons can find eligible widows. Well, everybody's super surprised at how young and beautiful this widow is. They expected to have to make some concessions to gain access to these women's fortunes. Because remember, when the husband died, she would have inherited the money, but once she remarries, all that money goes to her new husband. Fascinating, and totally, like, because of society, totally off, like totally wrong way to live life. When she finds out that her name has been printed in this, she finds the person who is responsible for printing, and of course, they're gonna fall in love. This was super fun because the women decide, knowing that this is out there and knowing that that's what these men are doing, they're like, fine, you want to marry us? You want our wealth? Play by our rules, not society's rules. And it's very cute. It's very, very cute. Clean, if that is something that is important to you in a book. The next thing I finished was Frances Burney's Evelina. And this is a book that I read because it was in Jane Austen's bookshelf by Rebecca Romney. I want to read so many more things by this author. I have, of course, always been aware of the name Frances Burney as long as I've known the name Jane Austen, but this is the first time that I have read of Frances Burney, and I loved this. It is told in letters, which is never my favorite way to read a story. I really don't love reading fiction that is journal entries, like that is only journal entries or only letters. I don't mind if those things are present in a narrative, but I don't want them to be the narrative, usually. But in this, it really, really worked. I loved it. There's so much in here that shocks and appalls. I can just imagine how fun it was to read in the Regency. It's fun to read now. There are moments which made me laugh out loud. There are some things that I think maybe are lost on us now, that, not that they don't age well. There are definitely some things that don't age well, but that's not what I'm talking about. Like, for example, at the very end of the book, there's this long scene with this kind of fight between this ship's captain and this kind of Beau Bromley guy. Like, he's very into his dress and the way he presents himself in society. And then you've got this like sailor dude, and they have this fight. They have an actual fight, and there's a monkey involved and all sorts of things. And the whole time I'm reading it, I'm like, I'm loving this because I love this conversation between them. Like, where would I see this kind of conversation that goes on for pages and pages and pages of dialogue straight out of the 1700s? Like, where would I see this? Because it's not like manners. It's super fun to read. But also I'm thinking, why is this in here? Why is this here? The story is basically wrapped up. Why are we here? And I did go into the introduction and I read a couple of things to try and figure that out. And I guess what it was, which was lost on me, really, and maybe it wouldn't have been lost on me in a second reading, but in this one, it was lost on me that what Bernie is trying to do is establish how Evelina, throughout the entire book, which I did catch, often innocently finds herself in the midst of terrible situations because she doesn't understand that not everyone is good or that not everyone has good intentions. She doesn't understand. She's too naive. She's too naive. And so this last conversation was supposed to be an opportunity for her to step in, or for her to at least acknowledge to the reader through the letters that this incident was not what was wrong about this incident, but she doesn't do it. So it's more like establishing for us that Evelina is still a naive girl, even though things have changed for her. I don't know how to say it without doing spoilers. That she hasn't changed. She remains the same, although her circumstances in life have changed. That she's the same old girl that we knew from the beginning. I didn't get that. I just was like, wow, that monkey just bit that guy's face. And why are we here? So there are some weird things about it. There definitely are some weird things about the book or the reading experience of the book. But for the most part, this was genuinely a delight. So easy to read. I just lapped it up. It was awesome. The next thing I read was The Patron Saint of Second Chances by Christine Simon. This is a kind of departure from my normal reads, but it was one of the books that I got as a summer read, and I'm really glad that I read it in the summer. It's a perfect summer read. It's about this guy who is kind of like the self-proclaimed mayor of this tiny little 200-person village in Italy. His real job is, or his paid job is vacuum repairman for the 200 people who live in his town. It's kind of like a medieval town. It's like old, very old. And it's one of many, many in Italy. And the Italian government has decided that it's not going to continue servicing with water supply towns whose pipes are beyond usefulness. And so it's going to effectively just kind of create a bunch of ghost towns. And in order to decide which ghost towns it's going to create, or which towns will become ghost towns, it is sending out all these different plumbers to go and check the pipes in all the buildings in different parts of the country. When his community has their pipes checked, he is informed that they're not going to pass inspection and that he's got to pay, not him, but the town has to somehow come up with 70,000 lira, $70,000 for repairs and upgrades if they want to remain a viable town that receives water from the country. The town does not have $70,000, and he is too afraid to tell them, or he doesn't want to tell them. It feels too sad. Like, some of them families have been there for generations, but he's effectively got to tell 200 people that they have to move somewhere else. So he decides that before he resorts to telling them that, they have 6 weeks to do this. He decides before he tells them that, he's going to try and raise the money. He's going to try and figure out a way to get the money. And he comes up with this crazy scheme, which you then read about. It's full of hijinks. Like, I would compare this to maybe an elevated, slightly literary, it's very well written, but slightly literary, Weekend at Bernie's, if you're familiar with that movie. Weekend at Bernie's is about these two college guys. It's from the 80s. It's about these two college guys who are invited to this rich guy's house for a summer party, and he dies. And they don't want the fun to end, so they continue to make this corpse appear to be alive, moving around, going from place to place. Basically, this corpse is kind of tied to these two guys' bodies through the entire thing to try and make him seem alive so that they can keep the fun going. That sounds very, very macabre, and it is, but it's also hilarious. And this has the same vibe. It's very well written. It is hilarious. It is feel good. It is heartwarming. It's fun. It's a lot of fun. There's a lot of bathroom humor in this. I guess that's appropriate because of water pipes. I don't know, but I would actually really recommend this. It is not, again, the kind of thing that I normally read, but I really, really enjoyed this. And I think a lot of that has to do with Christine Simon's writing. This is her first book. This is a debut. I will definitely be picking up more by this author. And then this book is going to represent the one that I read on my Kindle, which was Hester Fox's A Magic Deep and Drowning. I'm going to need to get a physical copy of this book because it may be my favorite book of the year. What? I've said that every month. I have so many books that might be my favorite book of the year, but this really might be my favorite book of the year. I loved this book. It doesn't have very high ratings on Goodreads, and I'm not really sure why. It's a really, really excellent book. It is an allegory for climate change, but don't let that put you off if that's not something that you're interested in reading about. I myself would probably not have been excited to pick it up if I had heard it was an allegory for climate change. When you're reading it, what you're really reading is this historical fiction fairy tale set in an unidentified Dutch past. And there is a girl, and she has been raised in a home that has provided all of her physical needs, but with a cruel mother and father who she feels hate her. And a nurse, Helma, a nurse who has raised her from childhood, from infanthood. Her father comes to her one day and says, you know what, I'm gonna marry you off to this rich guy over here in a business deal. They say that he's good looking and young, and I think that it'll be good for you, it'll be good for me, this is what we're doing. And she agrees. She quickly agrees. She would have been made to do it anyway, but she agrees. And she agrees because she doesn't want to stay in that house anymore. She's excited to get out of that house. Maybe she thinks her husband will love her and she'll love him, but even if he doesn't, it will still be more freedom than she currently has. Freedom to be herself, to express herself, explore her own interests, and to just not be hated all the time. She thinks it's a possibility that things could get better for her. And so she takes it. She decides that it would be important for her to understand how to run a kitchen. And so she wants to work in the kitchen. Really, she's just trying to stay out from under her mother's feet because every time she has an interaction with her mother, it ends badly. And so she's thinking, okay, I can make life go more quickly, the days pass more quickly if I spend a lot of time like working in the kitchen and learning how to run a proper kitchen for my husband in the future. While she's in the kitchen, she crosses paths with a delivery guy from the fishmonger, and something seems different about him. She's strangely drawn to him, and they have this little conversation where an orange is mentioned, and then he has a maid slip her an orange later that night. They keep crossing paths, and very innocently, she falls in love with him. There's a lot of suspicious things about him, though. A lot of suspicious things. She's also being haunted by the ghost of her childhood friend who, on their property, walked into the water one night and drowned. And this ghost seems to be coming around now, has never come around before, but is coming around now and seems very troubled. In fact, there are a couple of moments that feel a little bit horror, but don't let that put you off. There's like just a paragraph. Mostly it's just like a dark fairy tale. This book, this story goes places you will never anticipate it going. It's so well written, so engaging, so fun. I would recommend it for people who enjoy T. Kingfisher books. This feels like that. Although maybe a little less humor. There's definitely humor, but a little less humor than a T. Kingfisher book. But that same kind of level of, and lots less horror than T. Kingfisher, but that same level of a fairy tale. Fairy tales should have a certain feeling. And sometimes these newer fairy tales, this is not a retelling of anything, although you will see glimpses of things that feel familiar to you. But it's not a straight retelling of anything. But when you have these books that are trying to be fairy tales, lots of times there's something missing in the tone, and this has the perfect fairy tale tone. Perfect fairy tale tone. I don't want to tell you any more about the story because of all the amazing places that it goes, but I highly recommend this book, and yeah, it might be my favorite of the year so far. That's what I've read so far this month. Everything great except for Emma of 83rd Street. Everything has been so good, and so many little surprises like I didn't anticipate that I would love. That's that. I'll check in again after I've read some more. Going to do a quick check-in. I just got finished having our Zoom conversation about the 2 books that we read for Books Love Everyone. That was super fun. I don't know how much we talked about books, but we definitely talked about a lot of things. And so while I have things, kind of set up here and stacks of books, I thought I would check in. This won't be the final check-in though, because there's still several days left of the month and I intend to keep reading. So I do want to show you this though. I did get, since the last time I checked in, I did pick up a physical copy of A Magic Deep and Drowning by Hester Fox. I think this is the last review that I did in the previous check-in. I loved this so much. I loved this book so much. I'm still thinking about it. Highly recommend this. I just wanted to show the cover for it and the physical copy of it that I purchased, because very happy to have this on my shelf. I noticed that there was a darker page and was wondering why. It's because there's a part 2. I am very happy to have this on my shelf, and I kind of want to go in and read the actual copy, because what I read was the ARC copy, and sometimes there are significant changes. So I am interested in going back and reading this, maybe before the year is even through. I loved this. This caught me somehow. It caught me. And I feel like I didn't necessarily talk enough about it or say everything that I wanted to say. I'm going to try and pull my thoughts together when I didn't write my commonplace book quotes in it when I was highlighting in the Kindle, because when I read in my Kindle, I generally do that at night in bed before I go to sleep. And so I'm not going to stop in the middle of that and pull out a notebook and write something down. So I haven't written those commonplace book quotes down yet. And when I do, I'm going to try and gather my thoughts. So I might actually end this wrap up with a more in-depth talk about this book. I don't know if I will, but I might. And so, because there are definitely things that I want to say, but I still need to pull my brain around them a little bit more. So there's that little show and tell. Now let's talk about some of the books that I read that you haven't heard me talk about yet. So I finally read Queen of Exiles, almost like Queen of Lies, Queen of Exiles by Vanessa Riley. This book was both wonderful and less effective than it could have been, I think. So one of the things that I absolutely loved about this was the historical story that it was telling of this real life woman. Vanessa Riley does a great job of creating a complex character. The woman would have been complex. Her situation would have been incredibly complicated. And Vanessa Riley, without telling, through a lot of showing, definitely creates a complex character in a complicated situation and makes that completely understandable for a reader in today's world. Because many of the complications and the complexities of this character situation arise from her time period and the cultures from which she is coming, and the social mores of the time, and the wars that are happening, and the role of people of color across the globe, and a cultural racism that just runs incredibly deep in the country to which she seeks refuge. So this is about a woman who was the daughter of a former slave, and she was born in Haiti. I don't know if it was called Haiti at the time, but she was born in Haiti, and she is raised not incredibly poor, but not a queen, to commoners, because there is no king or queen. There's no kingdom in Haiti at the time of her birth. And she works as a waitress in her father and mother's restaurant. I don't know if that's what they would call it in the 1700s, but in their restaurant. And she finds herself married to a man who is established as a king of Haiti. And so therefore she becomes a queen. So these two commoners rise to this level of prestige and honor and power and wealth. And they have this dream, or he has this dream, of making Haiti one of the greatest nations in the world. But he does achieve that to a certain extent. Haiti, whether you know it or not, at one point is one of the most powerful nations, richest nations. It's during his reign, and he's trying to build this beautiful country, which is self-sustaining and can sustain others, and which is just this beautiful ode to himself and his own ideals. A revolution happens, and he and all of his advisors, his whole cabinet, and his eldest son are all killed as a result of that. But they allow his wife and his daughters to be exiled. So they are exiled to England, where they take refuge. And in England, there's institutionalized racism, obviously, although slavery is not a thing by the time they get there. So there's no enslavement of people of color legally in England at the time. And yet there is this serious and institutionalized racism. And so she is a queen without a country. She has no country. She's a refugee. She knows what it was to be a commoner. She's raising her daughters to be royal, but also to not shy away from hard work, while living in a predominantly white society. And if she's going to raise her daughters among the social strata that she feels is their right, because they were born into it, is their right, then they're going to have to work within a world that is 99.9% white, and only about 10% of those individuals see them as fully human. And yeah, it's complicated. What didn't, and Riley does that so well, to kind of balance their pride and their vulnerability, especially the queen's pride and her vulnerability, and to make a likable but regal woman your narrator. She does a really, really excellent job. She also does a great job of helping understand the politics and the social issues of the time. What didn't work for me was the back and forth in time. It starts with her in exile, and then it jumps back to her as queen, and then it jumps very forward to her having been in exile for quite some time, and then it jumps back to Haiti, and then it jumps forward, and then it jumps back again to early days of exile. And I just don't know what purpose all of this serves. It felt very whiplashy, and I really don't think that it was that effective. Some things I absolutely loved about this. Some things, it was enough to really kind of bother me. And I did not feel, I never quite, and maybe this was part of it because she is a refugee, she is in exile. I never quite felt like I knew where I was in the story. And there's a lot of characters, and it was kind of hard to keep track of people and of sometimes the same people, but where their alliances are in that time period. And perhaps that, as I'm saying it out loud, perhaps that is part of the reason why she chose to tell the story that way, because it gives us a little bit of an empathetic view of what she's dealing with. But I do think that could have been established through her excellent development of character and setting of scene. I don't think we needed to keep going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, because it wasn't even just a dual timeline. You know, I love a dual timeline. It was a linear story told non-linearly, and I think it lost something important. I think it lost a cohesiveness. I think it lost a cohesiveness, and I think it therefore lost my willingness to work that hard sometimes, because the payoff wasn't that great. It could have been a completely immersive, get yourself lost in it, compulsive read, but it kept stopping and starting. So that is what I will say about that. I would like to read the two other books that she has. It's not a series, but that are kind of like this. I looked her up. She's got lots and lots of books, like romance books, Kindle Unlimited books, just lots and lots of books. But she seems to have 3: Queen of Lies, Island Queen, and one other that I'm not going to remember the name of right now. It's red with 2 women on the cover, that I would like to read, that are kind of highlighting and focusing on these historical women of color figures whose lives you probably don't know about. I don't know about. And I would like to read those. I will just brace myself for what I don't appreciate about her writing style. Because what I do appreciate about her writing style is worth it for me to go into it. And I'm hopeful that she doesn't do the same thing with both of those books. We'll see. I'd like to know. Next, I read The Lion Women of Tehran, and I read this for the 12 and 12 challenge. My friend Lindsay suggested that I read this. Lindsay and I don't always agree on books. When we do, we do. She loved this. She thought I would love it. She recommended that I read it. I read it, and I loved it. I read this in one day. I didn't intend to, but I couldn't stop reading. I needed to keep knowing what was happening. Talk about a compulsive read. Yeah, just absolutely recommend this book if you haven't read it yet. This is one that I probably would not have picked up. I did, in my mind, make associations between this and The Kite Runner in the kind of story it would be telling me. And The Kite Runner, although important and beautiful, contains pieces of a storyline, although realistic and necessary, which I find incredibly difficult to read about, and so I tend not to read about those things. And knowing that this was about two girls in Tehran, I definitely avoided this like the plague, because I thought that there would be situations in here that would be much too difficult for me to read. There are situations in here that are incredibly difficult to read, but they do not happen when the girls are children. And for me, my only two trigger warnings are mistreatment or intentional confusion or harm of animals and children. Cannot do it. Will not do it. I am the person who always looks up when I see an animal. Sometimes I'll just stop reading a book when I see an animal, even if I'm loving the book, because I will not go there. Just won't. And for children as well. Adults, have at it. Because I feel like adults can make sense of a situation, right? We can understand why people do things that they do, or why we have found ourselves in a situation that is hard. Children and animals, I don't feel have that same capability, and I don't want to read about it. So, that being said, I have avoided this book. Absolutely have avoided this book. Didn't even know what it was about, except that it was about girls in Tehran. The women of Tehran. That's all I knew. And I was like, no. When my friend suggested it, I read the synopsis and went, all right, I'm going in, but I always reserve the right to DNF. Started reading this, and oh my goodness, it was just so wonderful. It's so wonderful. Yes, it is hard. Yes, it is honest. But it is also uplifting and empowering and hopeful. Essentially, this is about two girls who have been born into very different circumstances, who end up becoming friends at a young age, and how their ideologies, based on their upbringing, conflict, and the consequences that can arise from those conflicts. Ultimately, they love each other beyond their different ideologies. That's not the case for every character in the book. There are some friendships that end because of ideology, because of actions taken as a result of ideology. There are some very, very difficult things that happen in this book. They happen pretty much off the page. However, they are not described. You just see the consequences, which are hard enough, of them. I think that this is one of not my favorite, but one of my favorite reads of the year. And I think it's going to stay with me for a really long time. These two girls, you see them grow into old age, and you see their characters grow and change and adapt, while also not losing the integrity of their character. I really, really appreciated Kamali. I really appreciated Kamali's work. I've not read, I know she wrote The Stationery Shop, and everybody talked about how sad that was, so I avoided it. I know that people have enjoyed that, but it's also a bit of a Marmite book in that some people loved it, some people didn't. I think that one has an affair in it, and some people are really not okay with that in their reading material. That is not what would have kept me, I mean, I'm not not a fan of affairs, but that's not what would have kept me away from the book. What keeps me away from the book is people talking about how very, 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 very sad it is. And yeah, I enjoy a sad book now and again, but I'm not one who reads to cry. I know some people read to cry. I am not one who reads to cry. I will cry anyway. I don't need to go looking for more reasons. Yes, this did make me tear up, but it made me tear up once because of sadness, but multiple times because of joy. Joy. That is more my kind of book. So yeah, I absolutely recommend this book. Know that there are some hard things going into it, but honestly, I think that in the current world in which we live, this is an important book for everyone to be reading. And that is all I will say about that. Next, I finished Emma. I was trying to do a slow read of this. I was trying to do the 2 chapters a day that were recommended for the group read. And then I just got to a point where I was like, nope, I've got to finish it. I have to finish it. I can't stop now. And that's a good sign. That's awesome. So Emma has long been, I believed, my least favorite of all of Jane Austen's novels. Second to last has always been Mansfield Park. I just despised Emma. She drove me absolutely crazy. And this time I read it, and I loved it. It has definitely moved up in my ranking. I'm going to have to do next year. I'll do a re-ranking video of Jane Austen's novels. It has not usurped the first and second positions, but it's pretty high up there. I think that the biggest difference for me this time reading it was that I am a different person. Like every time you come to a book, you bring yourself to it. You have a different reading experience because you are different, your surroundings are different, your emotions are different, your life experience is different, your understanding of how to read a novel is different. Your perspective is different based on what you just read, what you plan on reading. You know, there's a million factors that go into the experience of reading and enjoying or not enjoying a book. And one of the great things about rereading is that it's a different book every time. Every time it's a different book. And each time I have read Emma, I've been a much younger person. And I think that, until this time, and I think that for me, the difference in this read was really my age, and that's my perspective. I really viewed Emma not as a peer this time. I have usually read her as someone comparable to me and have balked and bucked at her motivations and choices and audacity. I have not been able to see her as more than a self-centered, naive troublemaker with too much time on her hands. And this time I read it, and I did not see her as somehow comparable to me. I saw her as a child. I saw her as I might see one of my students who I do not anticipate are going to make choices motivated by the same things that I would make choices motivated by. I had so much more patience and love for this character. I could see her potential. I could see where she was coming from, even if I didn't agree with it. And I think that I have done Emma a great disservice all these years because I wanted to see myself in the character, in the main character, because I can always find myself in all of Jane Austen's other characters. I can find my own Pride and Prejudice. I can find my own Sense and Sensibility. I can find my own love of the macabre and the gothic and the seeking out of the story that may not actually be there but makes it all so much more exciting. I can see myself in the quiet outsider. I can see myself in her other books. And I could not find myself in this book. And I think that's why I have disliked it for such a long time. Because I could not find myself in this book. I did not feel it had anything for me. And it did not entertain me so much as annoy me. And so I relegated it to the bottom of the stack. Even if I could say, sure, the guy in this is one of the better guys that Jane created. And yes, of course, it is a scrumptiously crafted novel. I can honor all of those things, and thus I have returned to it multiple times. But this time, I wasn't looking for myself. I was looking for my students. And I saw them. I saw them. And if I could see them in this book, then I could find a path forward with it. And that's what happened. And I absolutely loved it. I absolutely loved it. And learned a lot about myself as a reader. So once again, Jane Austen July, huge success. Just a huge success. I finished the second to last, because I still have the Romance of the Forest, the second to last Anne Radcliffe for me. This was the Italian. And wow. Wow is all I have to say about this one. It is many things. It is many things. But let's just say this. It is the story of unallowed love. There is a sweet, wonderful young woman who has suspect parentage. She's being raised by an older woman, and she doesn't have money, she doesn't have a name, she doesn't have any of the things that would make her marriageable in society. And of course, though, she has beauty and sweetness and talent and charm, and a guy, Vivaldi falls in love with her. Elena is her name and Vivaldi is his name. And every time the book says Vivaldi, I think of the composer Vivaldi, which made for a little chuckle a lot of the time. But Vivaldi is the son of a Marchese, a lord. And they have a lot of money, they have a lot of power. And when the family finds out that he intends to marry this nobody little fluff of a girl, they blame her and they want to get rid of her. They have her abducted and taken to a nunnery. And when they arrive at that nunnery, she's told you have two options. Option one, you're going to marry somebody who is of your station that we will provide. It'll be a fine life for you. Or option two, you can take vows. And she refuses to make a decision. She's like, neither of these is acceptable to me. I intend to marry Vivaldi. But Vivaldi's mother intends for that to not happen. So they lock her up in the nunnery for quite some time. Vivaldi doesn't know what has happened to her. Through a series of events that are happening in his life, he does discover. And so he starts to try to make his way to this nunnery and to get to her. And he's a little naive. He doesn't want to believe that this has anything to do with his mother, but his mother is orchestrating all of these things that are happening to this poor girl. Meanwhile, Elena learns that it has been decided by the abbess, who hates her, for overstepping her bounds. It is decided that the girl will be forced to take vows. And in the midst of that ceremony, Vivaldi comes storming in to save her, and because the vow ceremony is disrupted, the abbess takes personal offense, and she is going to try and orchestrate it so that the girl will be killed in some way. I think what she intended to do was to lock her in a room and just have her waste away, live in like an anchoress, just live in isolation in the abbey, in the nunnery until she dies with no human interaction whatsoever. And she runs off. Obviously, it's very difficult for them to escape. She runs off with Vivaldi, and while they're escaping, Vivaldi's like, okay, we've got to marry now so that my family can't stop us from getting married in the future. And she's like, do I really want to marry into a family that would like to see me dead or a nun or married to somebody else? Like, is this a good move for me? And he's like, yeah, of course it is. I love you. That's all we need. But let's get married now so that they can't stop us in the future. She eventually agrees, and they go to find someone who will do this for them. Meanwhile, Mom is talking to this monk he's a former assassin, and he's taken refuge as a monk so that he can't be held accountable for the crimes that he's committed as an assassin. And she's talking to this dude, and he's like, yeah, I can offer. Because it is decided by religious people and Vivaldi's mother that the only way to go now is to kill her. They have to kill her. Elena, they have to kill her. Because how dare she think that she could marry the man who loves her when she is so much lower in society than he is. And Vivaldi doesn't know that this is happening. Elena doesn't know that this is happening. They find somebody who can marry them. But the mother, she does feel a little anxiety about this decision. Just a little, but not necessarily about the killing of her. She wants to make sure that however they decide to kill her, that it can never come back to land on her. That she can never be held accountable or seen as responsible for the death of this girl. So she's like, how do we make that happen? Well, enter the Inquisition. This book. You've got, from this point forward, I won't tell you anymore, but from this point forward, we've got, I am your father revelations. We've got near death. We've got just twists and turns and plot things that you will never, ever be able to anticipate because they are just so out there. And it's such a fun ride. And I highly recommend you pick up some Anne Radcliffe if you've never read any. She is actually an excellent writer. She is an excellent writer. I think that she would have been like Ruth Ware or Riley Sager these days. She tells these stories in the way that she has to tell these stories to make a good income. And you can tell that she's doing that. Like Northanger Abbey makes fun of these books for a reason. But at the same time, she stops the velocity of the sensationalism of her story to describe the mountain range or the sound of the birds. It is actually really fun writing. And it's got comparable authors to, in our time period. I think she would have been very successful if she was writing in our time period. But pick her up. Definitely pick her up. Because she's a wild ride. And I would call her a thriller author, because like a gothic thriller author. Because although everything has this like possible spiritual element, it always ends up being something natural. So if you don't want to read a horror novel, don't worry about that. Although the humanity of the reasoning of what's happening in these books is maybe much more disturbing than it would be if it was just like the ghost of Hamlet's father. So tread carefully. But I do recommend these. I really, really love Anne Radcliffe. And then just last night, just in time for our Zoom conversation today with the Books Love Everyone book group, I finished my reread of the Jane Austen Project and really enjoyed revisiting this. So I remembered loving this, and I wasn't sure if I would still love it. And I've picked a few duds for the Books Love Everyone book club. I think they're all valuable reads, but some of them have hit harder than others. And I was a little bit apprehensive about this one. I was like, is it more sensational than I remember? I don't know. And I loved this. I thought it was I still think that it is very well written. I still think that the author does a great job of bringing these characters to life in ways that you would not anticipate they could be, while maintaining the integrity of the historical information that we have about them. I'm not going to say too much about this because I will end up doing a dedicated video about it because we've had our conversation about it, and so I can do that video fairly soon, so it won't take forever for that one to come out this time. That's what I'm trying to say. So I won't say much about this, but know that I loved this. Know that I love this. Every book that I've read this month has been a 4 or 5 star, except for Emma of 53rd, 83rd, I don't know, the Emma retelling. Every book has been a 5 or 4 star. And I've read so much Jane Austen related material. I've at this point, at this check-in, I've finished 12 books this month without even trying. That feels really good in and of itself. But also 8 of those 12 have been somehow Regency related, either written in the Regency. I've read 3 that were written in the Regency, and I'm about to start Belinda, and hopefully finish it before the month is over. And the rest have been either that one retelling or set in the Regency. And I'm just eating it up. I'm not tired of it yet. I'm loving it. So I'm going to read to the very, very end of the month. Not feeling any desire to call July yet. I could probably do a couple more weeks of July. We don't have a couple more weeks of July, but I could probably do it. And I'm just going to ride that wave. Just going to keep riding that wave. So there will be at least one more check-in. At least one more. Maybe if I can get my act together, I will check in regularly, but I'm a lost cause in that regard. Lost cause. I'll see you in a minute. Here we go. Final check-in for the month of July. I finished You Are Here by David Nichols. This is the author of One Day, which I've never read, but both movies have absolutely destroyed me. And I have really kind of avoided him all my life. I've not read anything by him, but this was about walks in England, and I decided to be courageous and go in. I don't really like things that intend to manipulate my emotion, and because of One Day, I had to kind of decided. One Day is that there's a Netflix show that came out last year or the year before. There's a movie with Anne Hathaway, but it's based on a book by this man, and it is about 2 friends who meet in college, and it revisits them like on the same day through decades of knowing each other, and it wrecks you. It absolutely wrecks you, that story. And so I was thinking everything by this man would be the same. This did not wreck me. Not at all. This is actually perfect. This was beautiful. This was really, really good. I was under the impression, because of One Day, that this guy was like a Frederick Bachman kind of a writer, who I don't read Frederick Bachman because everything I've read by him is so very blatantly intending to manipulate you emotionally. I don't appreciate it. And I know a lot of readers do. And if you are one of those readers, more power to you. I'm not one of them. So I picked this up trepidatiously, but I loved this. This was a near perfect book for me. Not perfect. There are definitely, there's some little spark of magic missing from this, but I loved what this is. And what this is about two lonely people who end up, through a series of events and mutual connections, taking a very long walk in England together, a day's long walk. And what drew me to this is my own desire to take some of these walks. Like, I want to, within the next 5 years, at some point, I want to walk the Cotswold Way. There are other ways in England that I really, really want to walk. I walk everywhere all the time in my everyday life. I love walking. It grounds me, it centers me, it decompresses me. I walk home from work and I absolutely have to do that. Like, if I catch a ride with a friend or if I take the bus home, I come home and I am still at work. If I walk away from work, I literally decompress. I literally, like, everything falls off of me as I go. And I think that started for me when I lived and worked in northern India. And I had albeit short, but I had a walk home to and from school every single day. And that walk, I took along basically the same route every single day for 5 years. And you really become part of a place when you do that. I knew about certain trees and certain ferns and certain animals. I knew seasons. I could tell, like, nature gives you beautiful hints about what's to come. And I didn't read about any of that, or there was barely internet back then. I didn't do any, like, searches about any of that. I just absorbed it through observation and being present. And being present through walking. And it was absolutely one of the best things that I ever started doing in my life. And so from that time forward, I have purposefully tried to have a walking commute. I live in a city with a more than adequate public transit system. And I use it. And I also use Uber. I love Uber. I hate driving. I don't drive. But I absolutely prefer walking, not even biking. I lived in a place once where I did a lot of biking. I had a time in my life when I did a lot of jogging, which is weird to me too. But I did. I went through that phase and have enjoyed all of those things. But by far, above and beyond, the best mental health thing I can do for myself is walk. And so I'm really attracted to that concept. And when I knew that this man had a book about walking, I was like, okay, even if he's going to emotionally manipulate me, I really want to read this. Now, I got this book a couple of months ago and knew I wanted to read it in the summer, but did kind of put it off for a little bit because I was a little bit scared of it. At the end of this month, I was in, like, a really happy place. I just felt, settled and happy and not overly exhausted, not emotionally taxed by by people, by my students, by my work, by any of that stuff. It was just me. I got to the point finally in the summer where I'm just me, and that is a beautiful feeling. Of course, in 2 weeks I start work again and it will go away very quickly. But right now, I'm just me. And I love getting to know myself again every single summer, like realizing who I am beyond my teacher persona. And I was in a good place, and I thought, I can read this. I can read this even if it breaks me, even if it tears me from limb to limb. I can break this. No, I can read this. It didn't do any of those things. Again, this is the story of two lonely people. The woman is a book editor, and the guy is a geography teacher. And he is going through a separation, a divorce. His wife and he were happily married, but when it became obvious that they would not be able to have children together, she leaves him. And I just find that to be such a horrible, horrible thing to do. I mean, a genuinely horrible reason to leave a person you love. You can adopt, you can do all sorts of, you could have a surrogate, you could do all sorts of things. Like, it just seems like the genuinely most selfish thing to do. But that's what happens. And he's still trying to kind of work through that, especially difficult because they both still love each other. But she is in another relationship, and she is pregnant, and she is moving on, and they haven't divorced yet, but it's going to happen. And so he's kind of shut down to everything and everyone except for teaching. And he spends a lot of time walking by himself along these very long trails across different sections, different areas of England. She is in a very long period of self-isolation. She doesn't do anything with anyone. She doesn't really have any friends. When friends do reach out and try to meet with her, she's standoffish. She agrees to meet and she cancels. Yeah, she's in a period of self-isolation, and I won't go into why that is, but the book does explain it. Because of mutual people they know, and because of, I think it was a New Year's resolution that she makes, they end up going on this walk together. And when the other people who are going on the walk kind of peel off, they continue walking and talking and getting to know each other and having mutual experiences. When I finished this book, I loved it, and I went to go read other people's reviews. And one of the things that they mention is that the ending is unsatisfying. And I'm going to say that there's a lack of resolution in the ending. I'm not going to tell you what's not resolved, but there are several things that are unresolved. It's a lack of resolution, but, oh, and normally that would drive me insane. Normally I would be right there with you. But in this book, it's perfect, because this book is about journey. It's about the process. It's about taking the step and taking the step and taking the step and never reaching a destination, really. Like, when you do reach your goal for that walk, that whoever 8-day walk, 3-day walk, when you reach your goal, that doesn't mean that you're not going to go on another walk. Like, there is a never ending journey to be had. And that is what this book does for you in the end. And I thought it was perfect. just perfect. There are a couple of things that I wish that it did a little bit differently. I mean, I wish that I felt a little bit more sympathetic towards some of the characters and some of their reasoning for what they do and how they respond to things. There's a little bit of a miscommunication thing that happens, which is completely understandable and very plausible, but at the same time, didn't really like it. Like, so easy to just communicate. Especially between a teacher and a editor. I feel like those two people would be very good at communicating, but it's okay. It's okay. A couple of sad moments in here, but nothing that's going to tear you limb from limb. Nothing. Really, really enjoyed my time with this. So much more than I even thought I would. And then I had a random hold come in. I was looking on Book Outlet a while back and realized that the actor who played Almanzo Wilder, I know that they say Almanzo, but he's very clear that it's Almanzo. The character who played Almanzo Wilder on the Little House on the Prairie series that was on TV, his name is escaping me at the moment, but I'll put the picture of the book here, that he had, oh, there's a big plane going overhead, that he had there's a big plane going on overhead, and outside there are some kids, and they're just in awe. They're in awe. They had like a soccer ball. They dropped it, and they were just like looking up. Anyway. Oh yeah. His name escapes me at the moment, but I'll put the picture here. And I realized that he had written a memoir, and it's called Prairie Man, and I wanted, his name is trying to come to my mind. Is it Butler or something? I don't know. You can see it, and I can't, and it's driving me nuts. Anyway, Dean Butler. Am I right? I hope so. Anyway, I think it is Dean Butler. He had written a memoir, and it's not just about his time on Little House, it's about his whole career. He's been in a lot of TV stuff. I grew up on Little House on the Prairie, and I wanted to listen to him tell his story. And I actually listened to it pretty much in one sitting, as I did a bunch of my watercolor stuff that I was doing in the month of July with some friends. And I was trying to catch up because I was a little bit behind, and so I spent a significant amount of time, and I listened to most books on 2.5 speed, and I think I listened to his on 2-point speed because he's a bit of a fast talker. But regardless, it was just a few hours of listening to his memoir, and it was lovely. I do not listen to very many memoirs written by 60, 70-year-old white guys. I just don't. I don't have anything against them. I just don't gravitate to that kind of wisdom and experience. And I knew that I wanted to listen to this, and I went in a little bit cautiously, but he's such a nice guy. And he's really honest. Like, he talks to you about ways that he's messed up and places that he, could have taken a different path, and decisions that could have been made differently. But ultimately, he's a really, down-to-earth, nice guy, and he's so Californian, and I am too. I was born in California and on and off raised in California, and my parents are Californian, and California is in my blood, and I haven't lived there in many, many, many decades. Many, many, many decades. I'm not that old. I am old, but I'm not that old. I haven't lived there in a long time. But I know it, and it knows me. California. He's very Californian, and I got that. I understood that. I understood who he was and where he was coming from without having to make any effort. And it was kind of nice. It kind of felt like listening to an uncle tell a story. I don't know. I liked it. I really, really enjoyed it. I don't know that everybody will enjoy it. He's got some interesting stories in there. He's got some great insight into other actors and actresses. He's not spilling any tea, not by any means. He's not that kind of guy, but he does at times have to tell you some stories that put people in a not great light, but he's never telling someone else's story. He's only telling his story and parts of their story in relation to him, which I really appreciated. Sometimes in these celebrity memoirs, you get gross stuff, and he doesn't go there. He's honest. Nobody is made to be, he's not impartial. I'll say that. He's not impartial. But he isn't dragging anybody through the mud. He's very respectful, very kind, very generous, witty. It was a good time. It was a genuine good time. And I'm a little bit surprised by what a good time it was. I thought maybe I might listen just to his childhood, which I'm always interested in people's childhoods, and his time on Little House. But when that had passed, I wanted to hear more. I wanted to hear about his time on Gidget. I wanted to hear about his time doing the Judy Blume movie. I wanted to hear about his time becoming a director and a producer. I wanted to hear about all of that because I wanted to spend more time with him. So that's a good sign. Always a good sign. And finally, I read Belinda. This was my last read for Jane Austen July. I started my reading stack with a Jane Austen July with Jane Austen's Bookshelf, and I ended it with a Jane Austen July with Belinda by Mariah Edgeworth. And I read 4 books, including this one, that were 18th century literature this month. I haven't read that many classics in a row in a long time. I've read very few classics this year, period. Fewer classics than I've read in a very long time. And I think that I was missing it. I was missing classic language and sentence structure and topic, theme. I was missing it. I really was. And so it was hitting the right spot. The more I read of it, the more I wanted of it. And so I decided at the last minute that I was going to get this in under the wire. It's a big book with tiny writing to get in under the wire. It's very readable though. And this was my least favorite. This was my least favorite of the 4 18th century novels I read this month. I read Emma, as you know. It was a reread, and I ended up loving it, even though I thought I wouldn't, because I haven't in the past. I read Evelina by Frances Burney for the first time, and that was just a joy. It was a rollicking joy of a ride. I read The Italian by Anne Radcliffe, which made it onto my stack of favorite reads of the year so far. I really enjoyed it. I always love Anne Radcliffe. I should know this. I mean, I do know this, but I should know that I really love Anne Radcliffe. She's a thriller from the 18th century, like a thriller writer from the 18th century, and that just combines so many things that 21st century me loves. And yeah, I mean, I do. I just love Anne Radcliffe. She's not for everyone. She's really not. And The Italian, as I've already talked about here, is probably not going to be for everyone, but it was really for me. So Belinda had a lot to live up to, I guess, but I really thought that I would love this. And I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it either. Mariah Edgeworth is she's just mean. She's just mean in comparison. I know that Jane Austen, can you hear? I think there's some kind of jets going on. I don't know if you can hear them. But I think that Jane Austen can be snippy. You know, she can have an edge to her. She does have an edge to her. But there's also just kind of like a general belief in the kindness of humanity or the goodness of humanity, or at least of certain people that will shine through. There's a happiness there that is missing from this. And Frances Burney, her character, Frances Burney is also unrelenting in her gentle mockery of society, especially of the naivete of young women who are unleashed to the wolves of society. And that is what this is about too. It's about a naive young woman released to the wolves. But the wolves are so mean in this. I don't know. It's supposed to be funny, but it just didn't feel funny to me. And it felt sad and dark and at times difficult to read. And maybe I had just reached my limit of 18th century literature, and maybe I just don't like this book, and maybe I just don't like Mariah Edgeworth. I don't know. I'm going to try again with a Mariah Edgeworth next year. And I will probably read this one again in the future, but this was not my fave. It was not bad. Not by any means, not by any stretch of the imagination. Like I said, highly readable, very easy to read. It's just peopled with such cruel intentions it's populated with people that have such cruel intentions. And I guess it wasn't what I wanted to be reading at the end of the month, maybe specifically after having read You Are Here and Prairie Man. Maybe it just wasn't the right tone for me at the time. At some point this month, I said that I would come back and do a specific focused review of this. I'm not going to do that right now because I have decided that I want to reread this, and I'm going to read, like, I know I already read it. I want to reread it again. And I'm going to reread it first thing in August. So I'm going to do it's going to show up in my August wrap up as well, because I really want to be able to explain to you why I love this book so much. Seriously, this may be my favorite read of the year, and I've read some genuinely excellent books this year so far. So I really want to be able to explain to you why I love this one so much. And because of the nature of the way that I read it, having read the Kindle Arc, there's a couple of things I just want to make sure are the same in the actual physical. And also, I just really want to read it in the physical. And also, I want to tab it and I want to get my quotes out of it. I did highlight things in the Kindle version that I read, but my Kindle reading experience is never the same as my physical reading experience. So I want to give myself that so that I can give that to you. So more to come on this one. I think that's it. I think that's the month. We are still in summer vacation for another few weeks. 2 weeks, I think. 2.5. 2 weeks. And 2 weeks and 2 days, I think. Let's get specific. And then I go back for some meetings and stuff, find out what classroom I'm in, what office I have, try to get all of that set up. I have a weird teaching schedule. It's not what I thought it would be. I think at the beginning of the month, I probably talk quite a lot about how excited I am for next year's teaching assignment, but everything changed over the summer. And it's not going to be quite as manageable as I thought it would, but it's not going to be like last year. Still different because it's a lot of teaching. It's a lot of teaching, and teaching at least one grade that I haven't taught in years, in addition to grades that I'm much more comfortable with. It's not the same kind of emotional load as other responsibilities I've had in the recent past. So in that regard, it will still be better, but it's going to be a lot of work. It's going to be a whole lot of work. So all of this to say, you don't care. I'm probably going to leave all of this in here so you know what occupies my time. It's a party up in here all the time. Yeah, I'm gonna go. Some fun stuff. Okay. I talked a big game at the beginning of at the beginning of summer. I talked a big game. I was like, I'm gonna take 2 weeks. I'm gonna stay home. I'm gonna get to be myself again, and then I'm gonna go do all these fun, amazing things. And I intended to do that, and I did spend 2 weeks, and I did get back into myself. And then I felt good for about 2 days. And then I was hit with a cough and congestion like you would not believe. And that really slowed, it knocked me out for several days, but it slowed me down for long after it had gone. I was tired, so very tired. And I don't know if I was still recovering from the year or if it was genuinely just this weird summer cold, but it knocked me out. And I would say it knocked me out for a good week and a half to 2 weeks where I just read and watched movies. It was really good for my reading life. But that was 4 weeks of my summer that were dedicated to recovery from different things. Then I had all of the things that I had planned to do in those weeks that I had been sick, as far as go get new glasses, upgrade my phone, get my teeth cleaned, all of those things that I had planned to do. I had to reschedule all of them, and I'm still trying to fit them all in. So I'm going to have to do some of those things now. Meetings with people at school are starting. I have one tomorrow. So there are, it's been a summer of rest, recovery, and errands for sure, but mostly of rerouting. There's lots of rerouting that I didn't anticipate, which is fine. I'm going with the flow. I'm having a good time, but I didn't do all of the things that I had intended to do, and all of the fun things that I intended to do. And I have, like I said, a couple of weeks. There was a moment where I thought I might have those 2 weeks might be taken by jury duty. So in October, I was called for jury duty and I wasn't picked. And I thought, okay, that's good. Now it's like a year to 2 years before they call me again. And then they called me again for August 4th. And the case was anticipated to last, they said, to plan for up to 14 days if you're chosen. And it seemed like a pretty big case. Just with they sent me a questionnaire, like they assigned me to a court, they sent me a questionnaire, and based on the questions that were being asked on that questionnaire, it seems like a pretty horrendous case of abuse and neglect. And so I answered all of their questions and was like, am I gonna lose my last 2 weeks of summer to jury duty? Which I think jury duty is a civic responsibility. I am all for jury duty, and also I hate doing jury duty, especially when it's gonna be so rough. But they didn't want me. I've never been so happy to not be chosen in my life. So, I purposefully kept these first 2 weeks of August open because I thought they very well may be taken by, 7:30 to 4:30 every day in jury duty. But then they dropped me, and I'm relieved, grateful, happy. But now I'm like, what am I going to do with these 2 weeks? I've got time. And knock on wood, I'm healthy and rested and myself again. So what am I going to do? I don't know. So while this particular wrap up didn't have a whole lot of B-roll and a whole lot of excitement, August might be really fun. So I will see you around, and until I do, let's go read.